Welcome to episode 2 of Amber's Painting Chronicles. I wanted to start out by saying that I was most excited about this painting as I feel it is more classic Bob Ross with mountains and clouds that were missing in the first episode. I watched this episode several times in advance so I knew what to expect. I already painted over the canvas with magic white. This time I tried a thin layer to lessen the buildup of paint. To reduce the need to wash brushes as often, I thought I'd use my round paintbrush for layering on the blue. The blue, which was supposed to have a hint of green that I forgot. Oops. I was happy how the brush worked with the paint, and after some blending, I had high hopes. I added what would later be water and moved on to the clouds. I'm still not sure what exactly went wrong with my clouds, but for sure I picked up the blue from the background, which kept blending with the white. I made one change here with the color. Instead of using permanent red, I switched out with crimson red. It was difficult to find a high-quality permanent red, thus mine was rather cheap tube that I didn't much care for. Even with my cloud struggles, I was still happy with my progress. I moved on to the next exciting part, adding what was supposed to be Mount McKinley, but we'll just call mine Mount Snow, as the shape doesn't quite match Bob Ross's, and for the large quantity of snow that it will soon have, which means it probably doesn't look like Mount McKinley. I scraped off the excess paint, trying to make each layer thin as possible, because I believe that would reduce the blending of the layers. That kind of worked, except that the blue showed through the thin layer of paint. Green made its way into my white. When it came time to add the snow on the mountainside, I was nervous to use a lot of paint, but after a few attempts with a small amount, I found it was just a lot easier to use a thick layer of paint on my knife and apply it. They weren't the best mountains I've ever painted, as I've painted them before using acrylics. I think adding the snow to the mountains will just have to be a skill I'll learn with practice, and I'm excited to see how I improve. I did learn how important paintbrush pressure was when I was blending my mountains. I was a bit too firm this time, but I had improved versus the cloud blending I had done. With my second set of mountains, I should have moved them up a little bit, which would have reduced the gap between Mount Snow and them. There's like a right amount where you have like too much or you have too little. Adding the snow caps on the second set of mountains was just more practice, and while I was frustrated at the time, my knife control had definitely improved. I must apologize at this point because I didn't really think about the camera's view and I held my arm right in the way. I do eventually move it to holding it from the bottom, but not for a while. I had to hold the canvas because I realized how important it was to press the paint into the canvas and how easy it was to make foliage when I did so. I can see that I'm going to have to upgrade my easel to something that can hold up to the tapping on the canvas without me having to hold it. One of my nice brushes did shed one bristle, but it could have been loose for a bristle from the factory since it was a new brush. I can't complain too much as there was only one bristle, where my cheap brushes shed everywhere. I pulled the colors too far in the water for the reflection and I blended them too much, which washed out all the blue from that area. I added the highlights and my camera cut out while I added the spruces. I knew what the final painting was at this point, so I deviated quite a bit to reduce the number of times I would have to wash my brushes. This is still an issue I have. The paint thinner gets quickly saturated, and I have problems cleaning the brushes so often. I have a couple of ideas how to remedy this for my next painting, and I'm eager to see how they work out. My large spruce trees aren't as defined as Bob Ross's are, and I think this is because my 2-inch brush is the rounded one. I needed the square-shaped one that has a crisper edge for a more defined tree. But I'm fine with how mine turned out, as they just look extra healthy with lots of foliage. I feel like I'm doing really good right now, and I'm realizing that as I improve, I'm going to have a challenge coming up with commentary. Adding the highlights went much better this time, as I had added magic white to the paint to thin it. The thinner paint will stay on top of the thicker paint below. I did have a little bit of blending going on, but not nearly as much as last time. Unlike last time, I remembered to add a shoreline. Enjoyed the addition of the red to the foliage, as it makes everything pop, and the foreground is my favorite part of my final painting. I didn't pick up the knife scratches well, but it was the part that brought the trees to life in my opinion. The effect is easily seen in person though. I had the hang of blending when it came to the water in the foreground, and I had found the right pressure to apply with the brush. I added some ripples in the background after I was done filming to get my final painting. So, I'm on my concluding thoughts of my painting here. So, I'm still improving. That's it. No, I'm just kidding. Of course I stopped improving. But seriously, I'm much happier with this painting compared to the last one. I learned the most from this one so far. With how to apply the right amount of brush pressure, how to use the knife, and how to correctly layer the paint this time. But most importantly, how to force a tree out of your paintbrush. Well, that's all I wrote. I'll see you next time. Bye!